Good afternoon, this is Eric calling with the National Weather Service with Alaska statewide weather for April 15th, 2022. Couple options for you. 1-800 number gets you into a phone system, and weather.gov/Alaska gets you onto the World Wide Web. So look into those watch warnings and advisories. Lastly, any questions, comments, or concerns, please email us at the email list at the bottom of the page. Taking a look at the RFC breakup map, you can see that pretty much quiet across the state as far as breakup. Everything's iced up currently. That shall be changing here by the start of May, but otherwise pretty quiet there. And again, spring breakup flood potential for major rivers in Alaska. Yukon River above average, Koyukuk River above average, Kuskokwim River above average, the Sitna River above average, Tanana River and Chena River above average. North Slope and Copper River Basin are both at average. So please, as we move into breakup season, please look for any updates there. Looking at the hazardous weather, we do have a blizzard warning out for portions of the Chukchi Sea, and that spreads over portions of the Beaufort Sea, and that's out through this evening. We also have an advisory out for Kaktovik area up there along the Beaufort Sea coast as well. So look into those watch warnings and advisories before you head outside. Otherwise, across the mainland, pretty quiet statewide, even the Panhandle. Looking at the satellite image, you can see a surface low with an occluded front spreading out through the southwest, extending down into the Gulf. There was a little bit of a shower activities in the southwest, but otherwise pretty light precipitation associated with that system. A little bit of fog along the Arctic coast and very nice conditions down in the Panhandle. What does this look like at the surface? An occluded front there, 977 millibar low. High pressure out ahead of that system out there in the Gulf over near the Panhandle. Also high pressure along the Arctic Ocean. Otherwise mixed precipitation across much of the Bering Sea and into the southwest. For tonight's weather, that low weakens to 998 millibar low and lingering precipitation in the form of snow showers across the southwest and into the Bristol Bay region, and mixed precipitation as you get out into the coast along Kodiak Island and near the Kenai Peninsula. Otherwise mixed precipitation through much of the Bering Sea as well. High pressure continues over the Panhandle. Some blowing snow along the Brooks Range and the Kotzebue Sound region, and fog along the Arctic coast. For Saturday weather, looking at that low continuing to fill, 996 millibar low now with lingering showers along the southwest and Bristol Bay region, snow showers along the Alaska Range, fog along the Arctic coast. High pressure continues near the Panhandle, and now low in the Gulf, 991 millibar low there. Otherwise, the next system begins to show up near the western Aleutians with a warm front approaching that area. Sunday's weather, 975 millibar low now through the central Aleutians, snow showers and mixed precipitation associated with that system across much of the Aleutians into the Alaska Peninsula. Otherwise, some lingering snow showers along the Norton Sound region and through the southwest. Otherwise, some pretty nice conditions continuing along the mainland. Low temperatures Saturday morning, we're going to be looking at 32 in Ketchikan, 35 in Sitka, 29 in Juneau, 31 in Anchorage, 28 in Soldotna, 34 in Homer, 36 in Kodiak, 23 in McGrath. For high temperatures Saturday afternoon, 50 in Ketchikan, 47 in Sitka, 45 in Anchorage, Talkeetna 45, McGrath 41, 43 in Kodiak. For low temperatures Sunday morning, 34 in Ketchikan, 36 in Sitka, 30 in Juneau, 32 in Anchorage, 26 in Talkeetna, 36 in Kodiak. High temperatures Sunday afternoon, 50 Ketchikan, 49 in Sitka, 46 in Juneau, 40 in Anchorage, 42 in McGrath, 42 in Kodiak. Low temperatures along the North Slope and interior Saturday morning, 15 in Fairbanks, -4 in Eagle, 1 in Fort Yukon, Ukqiavik -6, Nome 29, 8 in Tanana, 15 in Galena. High temperatures Saturday afternoon, looking at 34 there in Fairbanks, 25 in Eagle, Fort Yukon 24, Ukqiavik 10, 36 in Nome, 33 in Galena. Low temperatures Sunday morning, looking at 10 there in Fairbanks, 1 in Fort Yukon, -7 in Eagle, and AKwx Pass 3, -4 in Ukqiavik, 27 in Nome, 12 in Kotzebue, 13 in Galena. High temperatures Sunday afternoon, looking at 40 there in Fairbanks, 31 in Fort Yukon, 33 in Eagle, 27 at AKwx Pass, 12 in Ukqiavik, 35 in Nome, 36 in Galena. Down through the southwest and Alaska Peninsula, Aleutian Islands for low temperatures Saturday morning, looking at 30 in Bethel, 32 in Antioch, 33 in Dillingham, Cold Bay 30, Dutch Harbor 35, Shemya 34, St. Paul 29. High temperatures Saturday afternoon, Bethel 48, Antioch 44, 41 in Dillingham, Cold Bay 40, Dutch Harbor 41, 38 in Shemya, 37 in St. Paul. For low temperature Sunday morning, looking at Bethel 32, 34 in Dillingham, Cold Bay 30, 33 in Shemya, St. Paul 28. High temperatures Sunday afternoon, looking at 47 there in Bethel, 45 in Antioch, 42 in Dillingham, Cold Bay 40, Shemya 39, and 36 in St. Paul. For the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook for April 24th through April 25th, looking at much below normal temperatures across much of the eastern mainland, and that extends down into the Panhandle with above normal tilts through the southwest and extending up into the Seward Peninsula and also down through portions of the Aleutians. For the CPC precipitation outlook for April 21st through April 25th, looking at dry tilts across much of the northern slope and into the portions of the interior with near normal conditions spread across much of the interior from the White Cape Delta over into the southeast interior, otherwise above normal tilts expected across much of the Alaska Peninsula into Bristol Bay region and up into the southern mainland, including the Kenai Peninsula and down through the northern Gulf and into the Panhandle, with just above normal tilts expected there, and again across much of the southern mainland. Otherwise, it's going to be relatively quiet statewide for any systems coming into the state, so look for generally cool conditions across the east mainland and warmer conditions out west.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Taking a look at the aviation forecast, starting with flying weather for Saturday morning, looking at IFR conditions around a low in the Bering Sea, so that IFR conditions extend through the Bering Strait and over into Bristol Bay and over into the western Gulf. Otherwise, some marginal conditions showing up there along the Alaska Range and into the northern Gulf. Otherwise, some decent flying weather across much of the northern mainland and in the Panhandle. For Saturday afternoon, IFR conditions continue around that low, otherwise extending around much of the Bering Sea and over into Bristol Bay. Looks like we have some lingering marginal conditions along the Alaska Range, otherwise some decent flying weather continues across much of the mainland and the Panhandle. And for Sunday morning, we'll be watching a low coming into the Aleutians, driving some IFR conditions in the western and central Aleutians, otherwise lingering IFR conditions in the central Bering. And again, continued decent flying weather across the mainland and Panhandle. those decent flying weather conditions continue into Sunday afternoon, again across more from the Alaska Peninsula through the mainland over in the Panhandle. Otherwise, IFR conditions in the central Aleutians and in the Bering Sea, again associated with that low pressure system climbing the chain on Sunday. For past conditions Saturday, VFR Anaktuvik Pass, and same for Adigan Pass. Marginal conditions down through much of the Alaska Range, Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal conditions, rainy, marginal, windy, marginal, Isabel, marginal, but improving to VFR conditions. Same for Mentasta, Tanita, marginal. I went for VFR conditions for Portage, but watch for marginal conditions in the Prince William Sound area. Otherwise, Chilkoot and White, looking at VFR conditions. For the freezing levels, surface freezing level cuts across the outer coast of the Panhandle into the Northern Gulf, over into the Bristol Bay region, and in through the Bering Sea. Otherwise, elevated freezing level just clips this southern Panhandle. Icing conditions for Saturday between 3 and 10,000 feet across much of the Bering Sea. Watch for considerable moderate conditions around that low pressure system in the Bering. Otherwise, between 5 and 10,000 feet in portions of the Gulf region. And watch for isolated moderate conditions through much of the western mainland and southern mainland on Saturday. For jet stream on Saturday, looking at low pressure over the Bering Sea, southerly winds across much of the western mainlands up to 70 knots there. Southerly or northerly flow across much of the eastern mainland around high pressure along the Arctic coast up to 65 knots there in the southeast interior. Otherwise, the jet stream up to 165 knot jet streak over the central Aleutians, and again around that low pressure system in the Bering Sea. For 9,000 foot winds on Saturday, again low pressure vertically stacked in the Bering. Southerly winds coming into the western mainland, otherwise light and variable, especially across the southern mainland into the Panhandle. And we'll be watching the next system beginning to show up just south of the Aleutians, up to 85 knots there, and more of a westerly winds with that system. Otherwise, high pressure along the Beaufort Sea Arctic coast there. For 3,000 foot winds, low pressure continues in the Bering up to 35 to 40 knots in the southerly winds across much of the western mainland. Otherwise, light and variable across the southern mainland into the Panhandle. Again, low pressure in the Gulf region. Southerly winds there up to 45 to 50 in that area. Otherwise, there's the next low out there approaching the western Aleutians up to 60 to 55 knots in a more southerly winds out there. For turbulence on Saturday, surface to 4,000 feet across much of the Aleutians, and areas of surface to 4,000 feet up to considerable moderate in portions of the Brooks Range and southern Alaska Range into the southern Cook Inlet.
Floating hundreds of miles from Earth, astronauts get a unique perspective of our planet. While they might recognize landmarks, space is the only place they can see the very edge of our planet's atmosphere.
From orbit, particularly looking at the horizon, did bring to mind how thin the atmosphere is. It's like an onion skin around this great big ball of the Earth.
This uppermost layer of Earth's atmosphere, the ionosphere, also overlaps with the very beginning of space. It's the job of NASA's new mission, GOLD,
the global scale observations of the Limon-Disk instrument,
to study this region, a region that isn't just for astronauts to explore, but that affects humans every day down on the ground. For one thing, this layer of the upper atmosphere helps protect us from harmful radiation and energy emanating from the sun. But in our modern society, it does so much more. It affects the smartphone that sits in your pocket and the radio waves that guide our airplanes. The ionosphere is a crucial layer of the atmosphere through which our communications and GPS signals travel. And when this region changes, it impacts those communication signals. Changes can occur above this region from the sun's activity, also known as space weather. Changes can also occur below from Earth's weather, such as hurricanes and wind patterns. Gold connects the dots between how space weather and Earth's weather shape the upper reaches of the atmosphere. But this region isn't easy to study. The ionosphere spans roughly 60 to 400 miles from Earth's surface, which is too high for aircraft and scientific balloons,
and the lower regions are too low to easily study with satellites.
What are attainable, however, are the swaths of red and green light shining out from the upper atmosphere. Formed when the sun's rays hit atmospheric molecules, this light, named airglow, comes from green and red bands of glowing gas. Some of the airglow is invisible to our eyes, shining in infrared and ultraviolet light, which can only be seen with scientific instrumentation. Taking advantage of our planet's natural glow is gold. The gold instrument, which is about the size of a mini-fridge, is hitching a ride on a commercial communication satellite, SES-14. The satellite's orbit lies 22,000 miles above Earth, where it can record images in ultraviolet light to monitor changes in airglow across the globe. These images give information on the temperature, density, and composition of particles in the upper atmosphere. Gold collects these observations faster than any mission has ever done before. It captures an image of Earth's entire disk every 30 minutes,
allowing scientists to see how the upper atmosphere evolves throughout the day. Gold joins a host of missions studying the very nature of space
around Earth, the Sun, and planets. As NASA ventures farther and farther from home, knowing the nature of space itself is crucial for our journey to understand our solar system and beyond.
There's a new class of chemical compounds impacting the Earth's ozone layer and raising concerns among some scientists. But a new NASA analysis indicates stratospheric ozone could actually be impacted more by climate change and the continued release of already banned chemicals. The Earth's ozone hole is showing signs of recovery, decades after the landmark agreement called the Montreal Protocol that banned many chemical compounds harmful to the ozone layer.
So we know the Montreal Protocol was a huge success. This was signed in the late 1980s when scientists and policymakers from around the world gathered together to try to save the ozone layer.
The chemicals they regulated persist in the atmosphere for many decades. They thin the ozone layer and they create a seasonal hole over Antarctica. They basically take away part of our planet's natural sunscreen, and that increases the risk of skin cancer and damage to plants.
Scientists have projected the ozone hole could disappear almost completely by about 2075, but several factors could delay that recovery.
There are some industrial compounds that are not banned by the Montreal Protocol, but as they enter the atmosphere, they will also hurt the ozone layer.
But the unregulated compounds have a short lifespan in the atmosphere, unlike the chlorofluorocarbons that were originally regulated. So they have a short-lived impact on ozone, and we don't think they'll delay recovery by more than a few years.
We projected by 2050, more than half of the ozone-depleting compounds in the atmosphere will come from long-lived substances banned by the protocol.
Because these compounds stay in the air for such a long time, compared to the unregulated, short-lived compounds, they will have a disproportionate and lingering impact on ozone. So any non-compliance with the protocol can have significant consequences.
And the really big uncertainty in ozone layer recovery is climate change. There are many naturally produced ozone-depleting substances that are emitted by the oceans. And as the oceans continue to warm due to climate change, those emissions will increase, and that will further delay ozone recovery.
Scientists want to better understand how climate change will affect ozone recovery.
This is a hard problem. As a scientific community, we need to work on this major issue. We now have a powerful new tool to simulate atmosphere and its interaction with land and ocean to study this issue. And that's what we're going to do.
How can you see the atmosphere? The answer is blowing in the wind. Tiny particles known as aerosols are carried by the air around the globe. This visualization uses data from NASA satellites combined with our knowledge of physics and meteorology to track 3 aerosols: dust, smoke, and sea salt. Sea salt, shown here in blue, is picked up by winds passing over the ocean. As tropical storms and hurricanes form, the salt particles are concentrated into the spiraling shape we all recognize. With their movements, we can follow the formation of Hurricane Irma and see the dust from the Sahara, shown in tan, get washed out of the storm center by the rain. Advances in computing speed allow scientists to include more details of these physical processes in their simulations of how the aerosols interact with the storm systems. The increased resolution of the computer simulation is apparent in fine details like the hurricane bands spiraling counterclockwise. Computer simulations let us see how different processes fit together and evolve as a system. By using mathematical models to represent nature, we can separate the system into component parts and better understand the underlying physics of each. Today's research improves next year's weather forecasting ability. Hurricane Ophelia was very unusual. It headed northeast, pulling in Saharan dust and smoke from wildfires in Portugal, carrying both to Ireland and the UK. This aerosol interaction was very different from other storms of the season. As computing speed continues to increase, scientists will be able to bring more scientific details into the simulations, giving us a deeper understanding of our home planet.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Taking a look at the marine forecast, starting with the ice edge, we can see some openings developing in the easterly flow around the low pressure system in the Gulf. So we have some lower concentrations of ice in Norton Sound. They're around on the western end of St. Lawrence Island. And there's some openings developing on the western end of Nunivak Island, also some decreasing ice concentrations in general on the southern edge of the ice pack. For Saturday's marine forecast for southeast inside waters, winds variable across the inside waters, anywhere from 5 to 10 knots there, otherwise seas 2 feet or less. For the Gulf region, you don't see this very often. Winds variable 5 to 10 with seas as high as 6 feet. For Sunday's marine forecast for southeast, for the inside waters, looking at winds generally variable direction 15 to 20 with seas as high as 4 feet. And for the outside waters, winds generally from the easterly at 10 to 20 with seas as high as 13 feet. For the south central region, for Saturday's forecast for Prince William Sound, winds generally from the east at 10 with seas as high as 2 feet. For the Gulf region, winds generally from the east at 15 to 30 with seas as high as 9 feet. And for the Cook Inlet, winds generally from a northeasterly direction, 15 to 30 with seas as high as 11 feet in the Kamishak Bay region. For Sunday's marine forecast, south central Prince William Sound, looking at winds variable in most areas of the Gulf and Prince William Sound to anywhere between 10 and 15 knots, seas as high as 7 feet there. Cook Inlet region, winds generally from the north at 10 to 15 with seas as high as 5 feet. Saturday's marine forecast for Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, for around Kodiak Island, looking at winds generally from the east at 20 to 25 with seas as high as 10 feet. South side of Alaska Peninsula, winds generally from a westerly direction at 15 with seas as high as 10 feet. And north side of Alaska Peninsula, winds generally from a variable direction 15 to 20 with seas as high as 10 feet. And for Sunday around Kodiak Island, winds generally from the east at 15 to 20 with seas as high as 9 feet. And for the south side of Alaska Peninsula, winds generally from a south easterly direction at up to 40 with seas as high as 12 feet. And the north side of Alaska Peninsula, winds generally from In easterly direction, 25 to 35, with seas as high as 9 feet. For Saturday's marine forecast for Aleutian Chain, winds generally from the west at 25 to 30, with seas as high as 15 feet. For Sunday's marine forecast, with the next system coming into play, looking at winds generally from a variable direction, generally from a southerly direction across the central and eastern Aleutians, anywhere from 35 to 45, so look for small craft or gales there on Sunday. Seas as high as 25 feet there south of Atka and Adak, and just south of Kiska as well. For Saturday's marine forecast for West Coast, winds generally from the east at 25 to 30, with seas as high as 13 there near the Pribs. And for Sunday's marine forecast, winds generally from the east 25 to 35, with seas as high as 14 feet there near the Pribs. And for Sunday's marine forecast for the Arctic coast, along the Beaufort Sea coast, winds generally from the east at 25 to 30. Chukchi Sea coast, winds from the east at 20 to 25, and down through the Bering Strait, winds continue out of the east at 30. For Sunday's marine forecast, looking at winds generally from the east along the Beaufort Sea coast to 10. Same for the Chukchi Sea coast and down through the Bering Strait, winds generally from the east at 30. For tonight's weather, looking at a weakening low in the Bering Sea, 988 millibar low there, lingering snow showers through portions of the southwest and Bristol Bay region, and that extends over into portions of the Gulf, especially the western Gulf. Otherwise, some fog along the north slope and some lingering showers, mixed precipitation down through the Aleutians and portions of the Bering Sea there.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.